Today in the Nerdy Gritty, we discuss the newly announced Hogwarts Legacy game and its connection to controversial author J.K. Rowling.
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. Well, they make some man instead. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I am Dez.
And I'm
a Gryffindor.
I'm Gryffindor, Fox.
Are you a Gryffindor also?
Yeah, I
I
tested into Gryffindor. Let's continue our talk about the Harry Potter universe right now.
Okay.
We will be talking about J.K. Rowling later, and the Hogwarts Legacy game that was announced. But right now, let's talk about some of the things that J.K. Rowling has made canon.
Ooh.
What I'm going to do here is test your knowledge of the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter universe.
All
that
right.
is the things that may or may not have been in the actual books.
So here's...
But are canon based on what she has stated.
I might do okay in this.
Okay, good. I looked up several articles that I literally Googled wildest things J.K. Rowling has said about Harry Potter.
We'll see. Okay, here we go.
All right, we're gonna start. Let's see. Okay, let's start. I'll try to start with some things I think. Yeah, you'll probably get this. All right. What is the correct pronunciation of the main villain's name in the Harry Potter series? Voldemort.
Yeah, without a T.
Yes, she announced at one point that it's actually pronounced Voldemort, as in like the French way to say it.
It literally
because
means return
more
from dead.
is death. Yes, it's similar. The weird thing is, despite her saying this is how you say it, she has always said Voldemort in other interviews and has never corrected it in the actual movies.
Right.
I think that was one that just got away from her.
Yes.
she
Eventually just got to be like, forget it.
The first
I don't
movie
care.
came out and she was like, well, too late now.
Yeah. It's almost as if when enough people get involved, the creation gets removed from the creator.
You aren't the sole.
It's almost as if you don't own this anymore. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, let's stay with Voldemort. It's the only way I'm ever going to say it now.
Wrong.
What is so when confronted by a boggart,
ridiculous? Is that ridiculous?
Well, ridiculous is the spell you use,
right.
but a boggart turns into your greatest fear.
Correct.
To scare you.
Correct.
What would it turn into if it was confronted by Voldemort?
Ooh, good question. What would it turn into? I would guess his grave, like death.
You're basically there. His own dead body, his own corpse, because his greatest fear is. His death.
His greatest fear is death.
Yes,
I didn't know how to personify.
Apparently,
that,
it would turn into it. He would just look at his own dead body.
There you go.
Which sure makes sense. That's not a wild thing. I guess not everything she's ever said is weird or ridiculous. That just makes sense.
Right. Of course.
But there are some pretty ridiculous things. Let's move into some of those. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about Hogwarts.
Okay.
Where does the name Hogwarts come from?
Where Hogwarts, Hoggy-Warty Hogwarts. Teach us something, please. That's the school song.
Go through the whole. Read. Remember the books line by line.
I'm going to guess, and this is canonically where it comes from, right? Not where not where she came up with the name in her head.
Yes, in fiction.
Okay.
Yes, not just her randomly saying that's a funny word.
I'm gonna guess that. You know what? The world is wild enough for it to be actual warts on a pig. Like something to do with actual warts on a pig is going to be my guess.
You are not entirely wrong.
I'll take that.
Yeah. It's actually, there are a lot of theories that had something to do with Hogsmeade. Because that town is called Hogsmeade.
And there's the Hog's Head.
And there's Hog's Head, and and they're somehow they're all related.
Actually, in my brain, that's why I'm like, pigs. Pigs probably have
actually not. Oh, that's not right. Well, it's actually, I believe it's Helena Ravenclaw had a dream in which she saw a hog with some warts on it, and then she was like, that's funny, and then they named Hogwarts that.
I mean, she was the smartest one. So
Apparently,
everyone
that
else
was
is just like, sure, man.
Sure
I don't
sound,
know.
yeah.
I'm busy being evil.
Salazar
chill, or
Slytherin was
brave.
like, I got more important things to think about right now. I got real long plans to rule the world. So, yeah. So that's canon.
The options were like, what should we name this? How about like School and Chill? No, we're not
They
gonna.
all just came up
We're
with.
not gonna do that, Helga. Okay, what do you think, Godric?
Godric.
It's like, how about totally jumping off cliffs? And
Yeah,
stuff,
cool
dude?
guitar solo
No,
school.
Salazar stabbing. No,
No.
stop.
Uh,
Okay, Helena. I had a dream about Hogwarts. Fine.
Fine, go
There-
with it. It's the least worst
There.
choice. Let's
Hogwarts.
move on. Let's build secret paths now. That's very important.
All right, let's get into our news.
Let's do that.
Let's get into our news. Hey, did you know Sonic the Hedgehog was trending on Twitter recently?
Probably didn't last very long because he's super fast.
Hashtag cancel Sonic Twitter was
What?
yeah, hashtag cancel Sonic Twitter was trending hugely. You know why?
Hugely.
Do you know why?
No?
Neither does anybody else.
Oh.
It started trending and other people started asking why.
Yeah.
What is going on?
That's actually been a thing I've seen recently. I've been on Twitter recently, far more than I ever have in the past. And I've seen that fairly often where it's like canceled random celebrity party. And it literally gets trending because people keep saying, why is this
going on?
hashtag
Right,
trending?
right.
And it just gets said so much that it's trending and it actually has no like it's ridiculous. It's Twitter.
So the only thing that people can really think of is there was a Sonic Smackdown, a 2D fighting game developed by a group only known as ArcForged, and it was bad, I guess. And so people wanted
Wait,
it canceled.
if we're canceling
But-
Sonic Twitter because of a bad Sonic game, they never even would have gone on Twitter.
My favorite part of this have been the responses on here.
Okay.
I'm 100% for this. Cancel that blue jerkwad. Why? I don't know why. Before you cancel Sonic, add these costumes to Monster Hunter. And it's a Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog like skin that somebody created for Monster Hunter. And if you scroll through these, there are a hilarious amount of just like, before you cancel, check out my artwork. And some very deviant art type Sonic
Twitter is
stuff.
the worst.
Twitter is a place we used to have a Twitter. I still go on there though. I tweet like once a week probably.
Sure.
But every time I go on, I'm reminded why I don't go on Twitter.
I've curated a very specific Twitter feed that's basically all like video game news or video game like industry people. So it's a way to just see what's going on.
I thought I had too.
Oh yeah,
But it gets wild,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
I mean, because they'll like retweets or they'll share
Yeah,
or they'll
that's
be
true.
like, "Hey, we think you'll like this" or things like that.
I won't stop.
Yeah,
stop
stop it.
doing that. All right, well, let's talk about the biggest news of the week. Easily the biggest news.
Oh, we're talking about that first.
Let's talk about it right now.
Okay, we'll talk about that now.
Microsoft acquires Bethesda Softworks
Yep,
in a $7.5 billion deal.
that's so much money.
It's so much money. I want to remind you that Disney bought Star Wars Lucasfilm for $4 billion.
Yeah,
This is almost double, which, to be fair, video games bring in a lot more money than
right.
movies.
It's the largest money making media
and
in the world right now.
ZeniMax, which is actually what they bought,
Right.
the parent company of Bethesda, has control over some of the biggest, franchises right now. So, still, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
That is so much money.
And okay, the question I have is, how long, if ever, do you think it will take for Microsoft to make something big exclusive to the Series X or to their ecosystem?
Not very long at all.
No?
No, I think that they will probably try and make right away timed exclusives. Like
Sure.
this will come to everything else. We're not keeping it from you, but it will also be on the Xbox Series X, XS, whatever. People accidentally bought the Xbox One X while trying to reserve the Xbox
That
Series
should tell
X.
Microsoft something.
You need a more clear naming system
PlayStation
here.
does it right. It's just the
there's
next
a number on the end of it.
5. It's the sequel to the last
Right.
one.
Or Nintendo calls it something
Completely
Wii,
different.
Switch.
Nobody's
like,
mixing up
it's
the
difference.
Yeah. Anyway, they have already announced that the timed exclusivity plan for Deathloop and one other game that I can't remember will they were planned to be timed exclusive for the PlayStation,
and that's still
happening
right.
apparently. So
and
I
that's
think
contractual. Like they had these contracts,
probably,
and they need to be awarded. Yes,
that's probably true. This is big news though. Microsoft has been in the business of getting independent, a lot of independent. The biggest of which is probably, the biggest game, I guess, the biggest studio that made the biggest game was Senua, whatever studio. Ninja Theory, right, right. They're big just outside of
absolutely.
Senua.
Metroid.
This is not an independent, however you define independent. This is a massive company.
Right.
That part of me wants to say, they're just, flexing a little bit.
This means that the Elder Scrolls 6 theoretically could be
exclusive.
Yeah.
I would be I don't think it will be.
No, I don't think
they're massive flagship titles. Something like Deathloop? Yeah. It very possibly. But I don't think Starfield, which is the next Bethesda, they're making a sci-fi game that's been in development for a long time, or Fallout or Elder Scrolls. Those will probably have Xbox exclusive content. My guess.
The big thing a lot of people are talking about is that Bethesda and Obsidian Entertainment work together make Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
And they are now both owned by Microsoft.
Microsoft owns Obsidian.
And they can now make New Vegas 2, which would absolutely
be exclusive and that'd be crazy. Here's why I don't think the big stuff will. The problem is still that PlayStation always outsells Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Just the number of units in people's homes is far more on the PlayStation side. Right. And so I don't think they are going to take the risk of saying you can only, just from a sales perspective, I don't think they're going to take the risk of saying, well, if you don't own an Xbox, you can't play Fallout. You can't play the new Fallout. You can't play the new new Elder Scrolls, because that means the vast majority of the people who bought a console will just say, well, that sucks. Or it will be, I don't think those will be system sellers.
I think that it will be them saying all Bethesda games will go on Game Pass.
Sure.
And again, we kind of talked about this last week, but I think Xbox is making a very wise and strong push for consoles as service, and not games as service in as much as Fortnite or Destiny.
Sure.
But games as service as the provision of games as a service.
Yeah.
And that really seems to be the way
Pay a monthly fee and you get a bunch of games to play.
That really seems to be the way that Microsoft is going. And you know what? I think they're right.
It's smart.
I have never been more interested in Xbox as I am now.
Right.
And this really lends to that. It really does.
Yeah. This was huge news, though.
Yeah, really, really big.
People woke up and were a little shocked.
I am very interested again, I got my eyes on Microsoft right now. I'm buying the PlayStation because with all the stuff that Microsoft is doing, PlayStation still has the better
currently
exclusives.
with what they've announced. Yes, I want to play PlayStation to play those games.
That's a great way to put that. With what they have announced, for sure, I want a PlayStation. I don't want or an Xbox.
But with how they've announced, especially the monthly price of a Series S, if they were to announce some big things, it's not off the table for me to say, I'll get a Series S, pay $25 a month and play those. Sounds great.
Sounds good, man. Yeah. Sounds good. So,
yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about what we've been up to.
Yeah, I watched a movie last night called Enola Holmes.
I started watching this morning, and then my wife walked in and was like, this looks like something I'd like to watch. And I was like, all right, I'm only halfway in, or half an hour in, so I stopped. We're going to watch it tonight.
Can I?
So no spoilies, but tell me about it.
No spoilies.
I loved the first half hour.
No spoilies. It's freaking delightful.
Yeah.
I loved this movie. Every bit of it was wonderful. I don't want to get your hopes up and have it come crashing down, but what I will say is that first half hour sets the tone for the entire movie.
Sure.
It's that delightful and that fun, but still adventurous and great for the entire film.
I watched the original. Speaking of Mad Max, and doing this on purpose, I watched the original Mad Max. for the first time because
Ooh.
I've never seen it on any of like the streaming services, and so now I've watched 1, 2, and 4. It really put a lot of stuff in perspective for the series. It really does. The series does a good job of kind of a descent into the wasteland that you see in the 4th one.
Right.
It's not just a post-apocalypse in the first one. Society has kind of fallen apart a little bit, but it just kind of feels like we've got a massive oil shortage and the world hasn't been able to keep up. And so now law has, like, there's just gangs are trying to, like, it just feels like a less
it's more
policed
it's more
world.
Post-apocalypse, like zombie post-apocalypse. So there's still buildings, there's still people.
The world
there's
still
things.
exists. It's just society has kind of fallen apart. There's not even one big cataclysm or anything.
Right.
10 of Swords, the new we talked about it a little bit yesterday, so you're already laughing.
We did.
I'm gonna talk about it a little more seriously, but it is a little goofy. 10 of Swords, the first big crossover in the Dawn of X storyline. So 2018.
And to be clear, this is X of Swords because it's
called
X-Men,
X of
but
Swords. It's
the
pronounced
Roman
10
numeral
of Swords.
X. Yeah,
Yes.
So 10 of Swords.
Yeah, they put in X as much as they can in all this.
And they always have.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because it's the X gene, it's the mutant gene, it's the X-Men.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So Marvel in 2018 said, let's put at least 75% of our eggs in the comic business in the X-Men. They are hard into the X-Men right now. There are literally, let me see, there are ongoing series that started, there were 6 of them. There was the House of X and then Powers of 10, which were the big 6-issue crossovers that kind of started the event. And then that split into X-Men, X-Force, Fallen Angels, Excalibur. All of them have X in there somewhere. And if they don't have an actual X in the title, then like an O will have an X in it and stuff. There's always an X. But now there's like Cable and Hellions, and there was New Mutants, and there's just so many, and they keep adding more. And every time I'm like, yes, more, more, because I've loved it. The X-Men were one of the first comic I ever read was Ultimate Spider-Man, but then I started reading Ultimate X-Men. I started when the Ultimate universe really started.
Yeah.
But so X-Men I was pretty big into, and I've loved how they've done. I'm not really talking about the X of Swords. 10 of Swords event because only one chapter of 22 has come out, but what I'll say is that with this first issue, they have revealed that they have done actually a really cool job of bringing all of the different storylines to a place where it actually feels like everything is worth reading.
I also read a graphic novel recently. I read The Adventure Zone Book 3, Pedals to the Metal.
Yeah.
Just came out recently, and it is, in my opinion, the best by a good margin.
Cool.
That is saying the first
those.
2 were very good.
Yeah.
I love the first 2, but the third one, more than anything, the art kicked it up a notch. And the artists who have done all of them, they really did a more dynamic job of scenes and framing, where in the previous ones, again, it's good in all of them and the art is always great, but in this one they move the camera around a lot more. They come from different angles a lot more often, and it really shows a lot more dynamic movement and dynamic action. There's just a few random panels in there of Magnus leaping from one battle wagon to another that just looks so cool, and it's so different. It's so much more action oriented, which in their defense, this is the most action oriented of the arc so far. Second of all, this is really when they, the McElroy brothers and father, started fitting into their characters in the actual podcast. Mm-hmm. And so this is when some of the best moments begin in the knowledge of Adventure Zone. Some of the most trademark lines and some of the most trademark moments really begin here, including several in this one that are just laugh out loud, like Taco choosing the mongoose mask, and them specifically being told don't kill anybody, and then having a big discussion of where they should hide the body, and just a lot of really great moments. But it was wonderful, just outstanding, top notch. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah, let's move into the that one. What's it called? The Nerdy Gritty.
That's the one.
That's it. But before we get there, of course, like always, want to take a quick moment to shout out to our Patreon. That's Patreon.
Ah!
No,
that was me shouting out.
You
to
should
the
have
Patreon.
said out.
Out.
You messed that one. You done.
Dang it.
You done goofed it.
That's
on
why
that one.
Patreon's not responding.
Exactly. Their mouse was hovering over the donate button, and they said nope.
Never mind.
Never more.
You a raven now?
Yes. Well, let's talk about our Patreon.
Anyway.
though. Yeah, back to that thing. Patreon.com/DesonFox, where you can go and if you're able to support us monetarily. We have different tiers, 3 different tiers, $1, $3, and $5. Is that right? 1, 5, and 10. I don't even remember.
Well, yeah, I think it's 1, 5, and 10.
Sure, one of those.
Yeah.
At $1, you'll get access to a lot of bonus content for our YouTube channel. A lot of early access is a big thing that we do. Months in advance, you'll get access, especially coming up on ours. I have a lot of content that will be going up months early. At the $5 level, you get access to all of that, plus what we call the director's cut of the Nerdy Gritty. It is essentially an extended version. We kind of cut out a bunch from the first half of the Nerdy Gritty every week, just to make it a little more succinct, a little more just palatable, quick to listen to, doesn't take an hour and a half. But if you like the Nerdy Gritty and want to hear more about the things we're reviewing or just kind of watching or whatever, or the news that we talk about, there are full news stories that we cut out of that just to kind of shorten it up. If you want to hear more, $5 a month on our Patreon gets you access to that director's cut. And yeah, so we do want to thank you for any kind of support you can give us. We understand that not everybody can provide financially. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So there are other ways to support us, like sharing this with friends, sharing this podcast. If you're listening to this somewhere other than YouTube, which is very likely, then we have a YouTube channel with lots of videos. We play a lot of video games and share them with people. So if you're interested in that, go support that. Go like our videos, all that. But whatever you can do, thank you so much for your support. Let's get down to the Nerdy Gritty.
Let's get down to the Nerdy Gritty.
So, 1 week ago today, no, 1 week and 9 days ago today, Sony had a big press conference showcase of games,
right,
talking about the PS5. One of the games that they announced and revealed to the world was called Hogwarts Legacy. This is a game based in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, although it's set a couple hundred years before Harry Potter existed. And essentially what it seems like, you'll be playing as a character at Hogwarts doing wizard things. And it was exciting, to say the least. It looked really cool. It looked like the kind of Harry Potter game that people have wanted for a long time.
Yeah.
There haven't really been many non-mobile Harry Potter games in a long while since the movies or books were coming out.
And none that I know of that weren't specifically about the books.
Yeah, and most of those were very, they were tied into the existing properties. And also, you know, people might like them, but none of them were like, wow, that's a great game.
Right.
This one looks like it might be able to buck that trend. It looks really cool. It's made by Avalanche, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's right.
I might be mixing that up with something else.
Yeah, now you've got me confused.
It doesn't matter. Warner Brothers games, yes, and Avalanche, right, who have made some pretty good stuff in the past. So people are excited about that. What they are not excited about is the potential connection it has, how involved author J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter series, might be in the creation of this game.
Now, this is because if you guys don't know this, if it hasn't reached your ears
if you've not
yet,
been on Twitter, so
right.
Congrats. And also,
J.K. Rowling is what's known as a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Yes.
Meaning that she is very, very much a proponent of women's rights, but she very specifically excludes transgender women in this.
Yes.
And as somebody who is beloved by so many different people, but
right.
particularly a lot of young people who are coming to terms with their sexuality or identity,
gender identity
in whatever way, yeah, and in so many different ways, for Rowling to do this was very difficult for a lot of people. But she is in no uncertain terms made it clear that she excludes transgender women from her feminism.
Now, I'm going to bring up the, I mentioned it before, the weirdest tweet award or the most baffling tweet award for J.K. Rowling. There's probably something else out there. But what I've seen is that somebody at one point tweeted at J.K. Rowling saying, "It's safe to assume that Hogwarts has a variety of people, and I like to think it's a safe place for LGBT students." And J.K. Rowling's response was, "But of course," along with a picture that says, "If Harry Potter taught us anything, it's that no one should live in a closet," and it has like a rainbow.
Yeah.
And it was like, that literally has the T in there. And I don't know if you know this, Joe. That stands for transgender.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe she's just confused. Anyway, the question here, like the real specific question that we can talk about a little bit, but the big thing we want is the specific question is that, how involved is J.K. Rowling in this new project? Did she write the story? Is she involved? Is that going to affect what actually is told in the story? Is that, things like that? The bigger question we want to talk about is, how much influence do we allow creators to have, I guess, on their IP, their story, the canon? We've talked about that, actually. We've had a whole episode about that. I think specifically here we should talk about how much should we allow their views to affect how invested we are in something like a universe.
Yeah, I think this is distinct because when we talked about that before, our conversation was more about canon. And
a little bit, like, should we say Dumbledore is actually gay? It's not in the books.
George Lucas,
explicitly.
Does he have specific control of the Star Wars universe, et cetera, et cetera? And so that was more a conversation then. Now we want to have this conversation. What if creator is a jerk in some way?
A bad person.
Yeah, or if they just very heavily disagree with us on something or whatever it is. How then do we go about supporting their creation?
Yeah, because here's the thing. Although I could not point to an actual factual source that's saying this, it is strongly unlikely that she will not be making money off of this game.
Oh, I guarantee you she will
be. She probably already has. They probably have already paid her the the licensing rights, Warner Brothers, because they're using her IP, her ideas. She famously has a lot of control over it and has always fought for that.
And let me be clear. She should.
That's fair. She was the one who came up with this entire universe. So the question is not really, does she? Because if she doesn't, well, then there's no problem. It's, how should we respond to the fact that she will be financially, or already has been financially benefited. She is financially compensated from something that we might be interested in purchasing.
And to be very clear, this conversation was sparked by a Polygon article by Stacey Henley, why I'm not buying the Harry Potter game. Hogwarts Legacy is tainted by J.K. Rowling's transphobic views. And it's a pretty long, to be honest, a pretty long article.
Well,
but the TLDR of it is, hey, J.K. Rowling has hurt trans people. That is an objective truth. She has. This will support her financially.
Right.
That is also an objective truth. Are you comfortable with supporting her financially despite the fact she is hurting trans people? And this person is saying, this is a trans person saying, no, I am not.
Yeah, they go through several kind of arguments that have been made by people about, justifying or not justifying or whatever, and kind of respond to all of them. I don't know if we need to get that specific about all those things. I think we're kind of looking at it from a 30,000 foot. Like, there's lots of examples of authors and creators and whatnot who are less than perfect.
Right.
Well, okay, to be fair,
nobody's perfect.
There's nobody out there who has zero toxic viewpoints on something.
Other than me.
Sure, us, we're fine. That's why we get to say, we get to talk about this.
We get to judge others.
We are coming from a perfectly objective standpoint.
Yes.
Unlike everybody else. So, for example, should we, buy a copy of Ender's Game when Orson Scott Card is a homophobe? Like, just like how, so there's a lot of examples of this. And so I guess, let's just start from the big standpoint. Do you think people should buy this game knowing it will support somebody who has done active harm and has not done active harm to a community?
It is incredibly nuanced, and we're going to get into that, obviously.
Sure.
And I will give you my general straight answer, but
Of course, it's a straight answer.
but even the answer itself is going to be dissatisfactory, I'm sure. But my answer is, it's up to you.
Sure.
It really is up to you.
That's the hard part here.
Yeah, it is. But the reason I say that is because, yes, J.K. Rowling is very public with her stance on this, but there are a lot of creators out there who have hurt a lot of different people in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons with a lot of different opinions. And to say, I will not purchase X thing because it has hurt people, we're going to end up with an empty home. Kind of like you already said, there are always people that have done something wrong or have an unsavory opinion about something. Like Lutheranism. Martin Luther was a pretty staunch anti-Semitic. Like Martin Luther, the guy who founded...
What's the problem there?
He's joking.
Again, I'm objective.
He's very clear. He is joking. But toward the end of his life, when he was getting older, Martin Luther came out as like a very, very horrific racist against Hebrew people.
Sure.
But that doesn't cancel Lutheranism.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
or the views he had in general, not even specifically the sect that was named after him.
Right. So we have to be able to divorce a person from their creation. That's step one. Step two is the comfort of financially supporting somebody with those opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of the matter is you do that every day. I promise you do. I promise you go somewhere and you buy something because we don't know everybody's opinions on everything.
Sure.
The real honest question that you have to ask yourself is, am I comfortable letting trans people that I know personally see or know that I purchased this game? Like, do I feel like I would be hurting them or whatever else? And at the end of the day, for me personally, the trans people that I know, I hope that I love them in my life way more than with my purchases. Like, I hope that if I do, I don't know if I'll buy this or not, but if I do choose,
it's up in the air for me too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We'll see. The game's got a lot more to show for us, but if I do choose to buy this, I hope that I act in a way that makes them say, yeah, Des wanted to buy that game because he likes Harry Potter, but no, he's not anti-trans. I know that 100%.
Sure.
I wholeheartedly know that because you know why? He's my friend and I know him and he cares about me and he checks in with me and we have conversations, etc. Like, I really think there's a lot more nuance to this than what a lot of people might be giving.
Yeah. Here's to play a little bit of devil's advocate there. The show The Good Place did a really good job of kind of talking about this whole idea of, because the world is so intertwined in a huge way, it's actually kind of impossible to do something even with good intentions and not actually cause harm a little bit, especially with like purchasing products. You know, you might not know that was made in a factory that relies on slave labor.
Right.
So you're not actively doing that, but your actions still had that effect. You supported that thing. That's fair. I think that's a fair assessment. It's very difficult to, you know, especially in purchasing, to know every single step of every single decision that was made that resulted in that product. This one's pretty easy to point out, like, this lady said these things right there.
You can see it.
I also don't need this product. This thing is not necessary for my, like, you know, if I have one source of food and it's from a bad source, I still need food to live. I don't need to play this Harry Potter.
This is a luxury.
This is a luxury. It's an expensive one. It's pretty easy to say, like, really at the end of the day, to me, it's hard to get away from, you just really wanted to play the game. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. People like Harry Potter. It's fine to like Harry Potter. I don't really know if there's a way you can just say, well, to me, it's impossible to get away from the fact that this is actively known. And you also don't need this. It's a little different than the general idea that it's impossible to do something without it somewhere down the line hurting somebody in some indirect way.
There are two ways to look at that, though. And number one is going to be similar to the classic philosophical question of the runaway tram car, and there's one person you love or 5 people you don't know.
Sure, the trolley problem.
Yeah, the trolley problem. But in the same way, what if there are 20 trans people who worked on this in the dev department, in the art department, or whatever else? And what if the royalties that they would have gotten, or the bonuses that they would have gotten, or whatever else, like what if allies and the trans community stand up and say, I openly and actively stand against this, and money that would have ended up in those people's pockets is now not there? Sure, you also didn't give that money to J.K. Rowling, but maybe it's trans people, maybe it's allies, maybe it's other members of the LGBT community. Statistically, I promise you there are members of the LGBT community that worked on this game. Statistically, that's gotta be true.
Statistically, yes. It's just fact.
Yes.
Right.
And so you can keep money out of their pockets, and also keep money out of Rowling's pocket, or you can put money in both. Second of all, though, and the reason I'm even not fully committing to that argument is we are glorifying money in this all the way. The bottom line in this conversation is, where are you sending your money? Because that automatically represents your values.
That's okay. I can see that. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, hey, if let's say an anti-trans person came up and they're like, hey, do you have $5? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Here's $5. But then I go and I live my life as somebody who supports trans people and cares for trans people and, all that other stuff. I would say, hey, play this game if you want. Like, honestly, truly, go play the game. It's maybe it's going to be good, maybe it's not, I don't know. But then go into your life and be a pro-trans ally. Sure.
Yeah, I can see that. It's really easy. A really easy way to protest something right now is to boycott sales, is to not purchase, because purchasing power has a lot of influence.
It does.
Like the way you spend your money can have a lot of influence, especially if you are like, I spend a lot of money on video games, and if I decide I'm not going to, like, I don't purchase from GameStop anymore because I don't like how they do business. The problem, so I think, where we can get into is saying that is trying to make a 1-for-1 between values and how you spend money.
Right.
To be fair, that is fair sometimes.
Yes, I mean, again, to be fair, in the very book that you and I adhere to so tightly, it says, where your heart is, there your treasure will lie also.
Yeah.
Like, where you spend your money is the things you really care about.
Right. Store up for yourself treasure. Look toward treasures in heaven, not what's on earth. Yeah. There's a lot to be said there. Like, we can't say that either direction is wrong or right. Again, like most things, it's a pretty gray area.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to say that you spent your money on you went to Chick-fil-A one time, you're a homophobe. But we also can't say that, well, you actively know what's going, what J.K. Rowling is doing, and so you spent your money, like, the either direction, making it black and white is not fair. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do that either way. What I do think, it makes more sense. What you're saying is, I would hope that the people I know, who know me, would not care that I play Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy, or whatever, because I treat them in a way that, shows that I care for and love them. Like, even, and, if they are trans or whatever it is, like, that your values shouldn't necessarily be dictated by your spending habits.
For example, and I think this is going to be a decent corollary here, on a separate, trying to parse my words here. I see this as supporting Harry Potter, not J.K. Rowling.
Sure.
If you are somebody there's the J.K. Rowling organization against trans people, and you give money to that is a very different statement than saying, I bought the Harry Potter video game.
Right.
In the same way, it'd be the equivalent of, like, maybe there is a restaurant that Donald Trump owns, and so you go to that restaurant and you eat there. That doesn't automatically mean you have just hurt all your friends in the BLM movement.
Sure.
Or something like that. This is, I ate some food while I was out and about.
This is a licensing. This is not, here you go, Joe, here's some money. It's, I think a equivalent would be like, did I play a game where an AC/DC song. I went and saw Iron Man 2, and a bunch of AC/DC songs show up in the soundtrack.
Right.
Does that mean I support alcoholism?
Yeah.
Or like drug use because AC/DC? No. It means that I watched a story that had these songs that they licensed. Sure, technically, well, here's the problem with that too. If I didn't go see Iron Man 2, it's not like AC/DC wouldn't have gotten the money. J.K. Rowling's already been paid for this. You're not taking money out of her pocket. You are signaling to the company this is maybe a less financially viable thing for you to do in the future, so don't give her money again. But don't fool yourself into thinking that she's going to be actively hurt by you not buying Hogwarts Legacy. And she's already been paid.
The Stacey Henley in the article we're looking at here actually cited that as one of the arguments.
That's in there.
Yeah, and she said, yes, J.K. Rowling has probably already been paid, but like you already said, we are telling people this is not a viable thing for you in the future. Don't do this again.
It's like review bombing something.
Yeah.
Obviously that game's not going to magically disappear from the world. It's going to maybe hurt sales, but also say in the future you have to change how you're doing things.
Right.
Because we don't like how you did it this first time.
And I also think we need to come to terms with what does Harry Potter mean to us? Because when J.K. Rowling dies, someday, are we still going to say no to this? Or at that point, just because we're not giving her money, can we then say yes to it? And we have to ask ourselves the question at that point, well, then this is about J.K. Rowling or is this about Harry Potter?
Right.
I love Harry Potter. I do. My kids love it. My family loves it. We're really into it. And so I buy Harry Potter products. I, do Harry Potter things. But you know what? I don't agree with J.K. Rowling.
Right.
And so it's, in my mind, and of course, I am a cisgendered male, so a lot of this
a very
is
specific
much easier for me.
Yes.
But I am able to separate the two very much.
Which is unfair.
Yeah.
We are not taking any we are not at any pain, or aside from a feeling it like sympathetically for others, we are not being damaged by the comments of J.K. Rowling.
But at the same time, going back to my comment about if I were to eat at a Trump-owned restaurant, I ate at a Trump-owned restaurant knowing what he said about Mexican people. He's a douchebag, and I know that. And his douchebag opinions on the Mexican people.
He loves Latinos.
His douchebag opinion and his opinion of the taco salads in Trump Tower are the worst.
That picture was so terrible.
He's such an idiot.
So, blind.
But it really is.
What was that?
But you know what, man? I'm able to say on a totally different aspect, maybe that restaurant has good food and the people who work there make good food and they do good work. And maybe there are Mexicans in the kitchen that work there as well.
There are.
You know what I mean? And so I'll go eat there. I don't care if it's owned by douchebag that has bad opinion of Mexicans. That is an opinion of me as a Mexican man. But I don't care because I am able to, and again, personally, I am able to separate those two things in my head.
I would request that you go to literally any other restaurant.
Literally any other one.
You don't have to eat there. And that's the case here. Yeah, it all comes down to you get I really enjoy she's making her argument they are making their argument, Stacey Henley, really well. I understand exactly where they're coming from, but they did title this article "Why I'm Not Buying Hogwarts Legacy."
Yes.
I think that does kind of point to the fact that it's a pretty nuanced, specific opinion thing.
I agree with you, but at the same time, toward the end of the article, and I'm fairly certain it's she, to be clear.
Okay.
But she says she very much makes the implication that you are a poor ally. You may not be trans, but you are a poor trans ally if you do if
you decide to buy the game. I hope you do so with an understanding about the context of J.K. Rowling's transphobia, not to mention the various racist tropes in her books. But remember, when asked whether you would stand with your trans friends or stand with her, all it took was an open world RPG to lure you over. If you've ever announced your allyship by claiming that you're no longer supporting J.K. Rowling, now's the time to prove it. That's the last paragraph of this article.
I think that's a false dichotomy.
It is. I think that's too black and white.
Yes. And I right here have an article from June or July of this year, June of this year, from Nicole Maines a trans woman, why I'm still a Harry Potter fan despite J.K. Rowling's anti-trans views.
Sure.
And I won't go into the entirety of the article. Again, it's another very long article. But essentially what she's saying is Harry Potter helped me come out as trans and or be confident as a trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she can't take that from me. Harry Potter is wonderful and beautiful, and she can't take that from me. And I still support Harry Potter.
See, that's where the bigger question of author intent versus audience like reception comes into play, because you can really, in my opinion, unless it's a actual history book that's commenting, I mean, it's still going to have an opinion or a bias, but commenting on actual facts, or, you know, if it's a novel, then author intent is important to a certain extent. I think it pales in comparison to the experience you have while reading it. I think that is far more important.
Yes.
Because if you read through a book and it inspires you to be more confident in who you are, that's a fact about that book at this point. It is a subjective piece of art that caused you to feel a certain way. And J.K. Rowling then saying, I don't know, 10, 20 years later now, 15 years later, I'm not in support of trans women, is not going to change the fact that when you read her book, maybe you just find out, oh, it was an accident that she said that helped me. Like, she didn't want that to happen. Sucks to suck, Joe.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's just like at a certain point, especially when something becomes so large, I think it escapes the vacuum of the author having the entirety of the influence on its meanings and themes and just the importance it has. I don't care what she says about her book, even though she wrote it.
And really, if I'm going to wrap up my thoughts on this, it reminds me of back in a time when there was some stuff going on in Arizona with like racial tension and things like that. And I asked my dad about it. My dad told me, if racists bother you, you can move on with your day and have a good life and just go do something else or whatever else. They have to live the rest of their life being racists.
Sure.
And that sucks for them. At the end of the day, J.K. Rowling may live the rest of her life rolling in billions of dollars as a kind of a hateful person.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to be way, way better than that? If I have the ability to, I don't know if it's going to be co-op or not, but if I were to sit with a trans friend and play this game.
You can sit with a trans friend and play the game even if it's single player.
Right. Yeah. But or whatever it is, like, that can't be taken from me.
Sure.
And that can't be changed or anything else like that. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say, if you have trans friends, support them with your lifestyle more than anything else. Live a lifestyle in which they have no choice but to say, if you buy this game, they must have just wanted to play that game because I know that person and I know they support me. I have no doubt they support me. And so even though they purchased that game, I have zero doubts of their support in me. So really, Rowling can die an angry person.
Wow. Oh, okay. There we go.
Rowling can die an angry person with all the money in the world, but she can't take the impact that Harry Potter has had on people.
Sure.
And to me, I'm satisfied in saying that and saying, you know what, if this game looks good enough, I'm probably going to get
it. Before we wrap up, I do want to talk about how could Avalanche / Warner Brothers stick it to her?
Oh,
They have come out with statements saying, yeah, we're not on that. Indirectly, but very directly,
right,
saying, yeah, we're not on that. Like, she is, I mean, the actual like question that was asked of them is she involved? And they said she's not indirectly involved. Interpretation, of course, but basically saying we just paid her for the IP. Like, she's not writing the story. This is not a J.K. Rowling story. Thankfully, we've seen every J.K. Rowling story after the main series has been a dumpster fire. But so it's really great. But like, I would love if there was a very well written, non-token trans character in the game,
or maybe even a little
active like dunk on J.K. Rowling. And their name is J.K. Rowling.
Joe Christine, I don't remember her own name.
I have no idea.
Anyway, or something like, there's this organization that's really hateful to this sect of magic. It's the Just Knights Revolution, the JKR. and like they're just specific.
And then every character in the scene just turns and looks at the camera for about 5 seconds and then moves back and just continues.
I would love it. I would love it
Actively.
if they made this game, did something like that, and J.K. Rowling said, I'm not going to give my IP to you. And they sat on all of their money and said, okay, bye.
And then Warner Brothers comes out of it on top in every way.
In every way,
I mean,
yes.
You get a lot of people saying virtue signaling, but who cares? Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
they'd hopefully they'd just say, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm there with you. It's a personal decision. I also don't want to come out of this saying if you don't want to support this game because it does financially support J.K. Rowling and you have a problem with that, that's perfectly fair.
Then don't do it.
That's perfectly
100%.
fair. That is an okay thing to do. And not even just because the point of saying it's a luxury, you don't need it. That's even peripheral here. That's an active thing you can do with your money. We talk about the voting with your wallet a lot when it comes to like review bombs and how companies act. So that's perfectly fair. So it's a very personal thing, and really I don't think there's any place to come out that says like, no, you're wrong in this. Like,
no,
it's
not at all.
It is a extremely personal take.
I will just say, if you have friends that buy this though, don't hate on them. This world doesn't need more hate right now. Don't do that. So just that J.K. Rowling is the one that is spreading a little bit of anger and hate, and don't be like that.
Yeah.
Don't
write
add
her a
to
letter.
that. Yeah. Write a letter.
Tweet at her.
Or just let your friend know if they bought this game, like, hey man, that's a little bit rough that you bought that. Kind of hurts.
Sure.
And let your friend apologize or whatever else. So
yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thank you much for all your support. Let us know what you think about the Hogwarts Legacy game and J.K. Rowling's involvement. Let us know what you think about when there is a creator that has very negative or poor views on something and how we as fans should react to that. We want to say a really big thank you to Granger for the use of our theme song, All My Friends Have Wi-Fi, and some of my neighbors do too, off the album Dear Sam. That is a good track. Go check it out.
Yeah. I also want to point you in the direction of our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of stuff going on over there. My playthrough of Ghosts of Tsushima is about halfway through. Coming up next is Assassin's Creed. I'm working on Red Dead Redemption 2 right now, which at some point in the future, don't know when that'll get up there. But yeah, in our Spirit Fair, which we are cruising through right now, we're making strong progress, is coming up. I'm not sure.
Here's what I will say with Spirit Fair.
Yeah.
There is beginning and will be a little bit of a gap in Spirit Fair because, number one, we couldn't record for a while because of the smoke. It was a real big issue. Number two, when we finally got back to try and record again, we dropped a couple of episodes in
some really weird
my computer.
issues.
Real technical issues. I am going to start a second playthrough because I love the game and I just want to play it again anyway.
I'm
going to play to that point, and we're going to record because some really big things happened.
Really big things.
We're
going to
record, the things that happened, and then we're going to
insert them into our playthrough. Okay, I like that. I'm glad.
So, but because of that means that we have to wait until I get to that point in my second game. So
speed run it.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a gap in there just so you guys know, but hopefully it shouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for all your support, and always remember that save games, save lives.
See you next week.
My voice is loud.